Now, on The Voice, a leading Indigenous activist and supporter of The Voice has slammed the Prime Minister's handling of the referendum. Jesuit priest and lawyer Father Frank Brennan says Anthony Albanese failed to do enough to get bipartisan support, hasn't released enough detail about how he would legislate a voice after the referendum, and failed to bring a broad consensus of Indigenous leaders together. But Brennan's still voting yes.
That's why I'm still passionate for yes, because I say these three fundamental errors by government have put us so far behind the eight ball, not only in terms of constitutional recognition, but in terms of bringing the country together. And that's what we wanted to do with this, and I think we're blowing it.
Brennan has also taken issue with the Prime Minister's claim that even if it fails, the referendum will have been worthwhile because it's highlighted Indigenous disadvantage.
I think that's a dreadful thing to say, if I may say so, respectfully to the Prime Minister. I don't know a single Aboriginal person who says they'd want to go through this again and that it was worth doing. What we've done is we've created a hell of a mess, and in terms of race relations, we're well behind the eight ball from where we were prior to the Garma announcement.
Yeah, look, there's much in Brennan's criticism that I'd agree with. I was writing a year ago that more detail was crucial. But now's not the time for an I told you so. Now's the time to decide whether this reform is worthwhile or not, whether it'll make the country better or worse, and for people, of course, to vote accordingly. There'll be time enough for postmortems afterwards. And by the way, Father Frank Brennan will join me on the program tomorrow night. We'll explore some of that then. But whatever Anthony Albanese has gotten right or wrong, it doesn't really provide an excuse for the opponents of The Voice. Peter Dutton has to accept responsibility for not providing the bipartisan support that he held out in prospect for so long. I mean, if the coalition really believed The Voice was racially divisive, they would have opposed it outright from the get-go, not just asked for more detail on the basis that they might support it. And if they really thought it was racially divisive, they wouldn't be promising to legislate one anyway. And the coalition also has to be responsible for running so many disingenuous lines against The Voice, including that it will have real power and could interfere in, say, the Reserve Bank's dealings or anything else. They know it's only an advisory body, but they've said otherwise. A vote for no is just a vote for the status quo, for what we've got, even when everyone agrees that what we've got just isn't working. Listen to Peter Dutton today talking about what he expects might happen without a voice.
If the coalition's successful at the next election, and I'm Prime Minister and Jacinta is our Minister for Indigenous Affairs or Indigenous Australians, there will be improvements made for people living in Indigenous communities like Alice Springs, because Jacinta has a practical knowledge, understanding and an ability to apply that skill and knowledge to the benefit of Indigenous Australians.
Look, fair enough. He's lucky he has a senator with direct experience in those Indigenous communities. But that grassroots experience is not always there. You don't always have a strong Indigenous coalition senator from Alice Springs. And grassroots input is important in the Kimberley and in Dubbo and Cape York and Port Augusta too, just as important as it is from Alice Springs. So having that grassroots insight, knowing what's needed, well, if you recognise the importance of that, then you're really arguing for the very idea of a voice. And strangely, this is something, as you know, that Dutton and the coalition support, as long as it's not in the Constitution. Such division in this debate, such concocted division, pretending that a constitutional mandate changes everything, when really it just cements a practical idea that everyone agrees on and makes sure that, apart from recognition, it also means that instead of getting rid of a voice on a whim in the future, we'd have to make sure we made it work. Probably not a bad idea, all in all.